Would you please take roll?
Ms. Atkins? Here. Mr. Hendricks?
Here.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Here.
Mrs. Peterson?
Here.
Mr. Stopper?
Here.
Mr. Wyledge?
Here.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the July 18th, 2022 agenda?
So moved. Sorry.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stopper?
Yes. Sorry.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Yes. Commendation and good news.
So we have some visitors with us today, and we have Coach Driver, and we have the 2002 Boys State Championship, members of the Boys State Championship soccer team with us today. So if I could, I'd like you guys to kind of stand up and step forward a little bit. Okay, bring up that big trophy of yours.
That's amazing.
And then I'd kind of like you guys to just quickly just introduce yourselves and kind of what grade you're in.
I'm
Yep.
Easton Adams. I just graduated.
Okay.
Colton Costello, and I just graduated as well.
I'm Braden Shepard. I'm going in my junior year.
I'm Dylan Daughtry. I'm going in junior year.
I'm Will Devine, and I just graduated also.
You just graduated.
Yep.
Awesome. And what about the experience? Because it's pretty amazing. You think back, not a lot of people get to experience any kind of even a state run, let alone a state championship. So what about that experience do you think you guys will hold on to for life or for a long time?
I think that just being able to be with my teammates throughout the whole process and staying the night in the hotel the night before is something I'll for sure remember.
Yeah. Hopefully for the right reasons. huh?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Nice and hyped up.
You bet. What about next year? What do you guys think? How do you, I mean, they're gonna miss you, obviously, so,
Yeah.
I mean, probably chances go down a little bit, but, you know, how do you guys think you're gonna do next year?
I think we'll do pretty good next year. Probably another state run. We have a lot of good freshmen coming in and a decent amount of returners too. So should
Okay.
be fun next year.
Awesome. And what do you guys do? Do you guys do any other activities besides soccer?
No, I
Just soccer?
Basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And then where are you off to next year?
I'm going to Iowa Western.
Western. Awesome. Good.
I'm going to Midland.
Midland?
I'm I'm going Iowa Western also.
Iowa Western.
Yep.
Good, we're gonna keep you close then, huh?
Yep.
Good, very nice. I guess, do you guys, as board members, do you guys have any other questions?
I just want to say congratulations. I mean,
Thank you.
it's quite impressive. I personally am very grateful that my child did not play sports and I did not have to sit on bleachers. So kudos to your parents as well. I got the auditorium padded seats for my kids, so. But I absolutely watched you from afar, and it was really fun to keep seeing the posts. They won, they won, they won. So congratulations on all the hard work and the dedication that you put in. It's very
Thank you.
impressive.
Thank you.
As one of those parents who sat on all the bleachers for all the games, I have to say you went through a really cruddy weather spring season, and your game to go to state was, what, pouring rain the entire game? So, yeah, but it was fun to watch you guys. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Congratulations, guys. Thank you.
Well, if we could, I'd like to get a quick picture, okay? Just so we can throw that on Facebook and let people know that you guys came to a board meeting. Probably the-
Absolutely.
You guys probably come to them all the time, right?
I recognize all of them from being.
Do you guys know where the building was? You guys have to ask. What the hell's that building up there?
Yep.
So probably what I'll do is, because Doreen's pretty immobile right now, I'm gonna
Well,
have you
I
guys
can-
just
I
kind of
can
scoot
roll.
around, just kind of roll around to her side if you could. And we'll have the guys kind of back up to the front here, trying to get everybody in the picture, so.
Oh, you want me in too?
Yeah, if we can. Yep, let's go to the front right there.
Come on, all y'alls.
You guys gotta be in pictures now.
You guys are celebs.
I should have mentioned that in my interview. Okay, guys, why don't you guys take a knee in the front?
Or do you want me to, I can stand.
You're good right there. Here, I'll just kneel down here and be on your level so I can hide.
Alrighty, ready? 1, 2, 3. Thanks a lot, guys, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank
Well
you
done,
so much
guys.
for coming.
Congratulations, Coach Driver.
Yeah, congrats. Good job, guys.
Thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you.
And next week, we will have, or not next week, August 8th, we'll have the LCLC crew is gonna come and talk a little bit about their summer and some of the activities they've done, so.
And I would like to welcome you, Dr. Hazing, the first time, your first meeting
Yep.
at Lewis Central on this side
Yep.
of the table, and so we're really excited that you're here, and I know you've taken off running and trying to learn everything, and so
Absolutely.
the board's here if you need anything.
Perfect. Well, so far, it's been an excellent beginning, and I'm just excited. Everybody I talked to just kind of helps me reaffirm that this is, a good place, a good move for our family, and that we are just excited to be a part of this community and a part of the school district. So,
Good. Well, welcome, and this will be the first of many board meetings, so. All right, is there anything else in commendation and good news? Does anyone know the score?
Is it
Of
still 3-2?
baseball? Okay, all right, we'll go on then to comments and suggestions. This is the first time during our board agenda that anyone in the audience or anyone online, if they want to type something in, can address the board. Okay. Okay, and hearing none, we'll go on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel,
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer,
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge,
Yes.
Ms. Atkins,
Yes.
Mrs. Shepherd.
Yes, and I did forget to say, do we have an updated personnel sheet?
We do, and we have several changes to what was published.
Okay.
Oh, just me?
All right, we'll go on then to reports. 6.01, construction projects update.
So I do have some really good news to share. I went on Monday, last Thursday, I met with Ronco, and we walked the building, and we talked quite a bit about where they're at in the process, and I actually ended up having Amy join us, because she was available, and we kind of walked the project, and we talked about some of the, potential issues that they may run into. But at the end of the kind of walkthrough, I did ask them for a timeline, and in my mind, I was thinking they were gonna come and say probably end of September, October. And they came back and said, well, we should be cleaned up and out of here, over 99% done by August 5th. So, by August 5th, the cleaning crews will be done. They should be out. The majority of the punch lists, they're actually gonna punch it next week, so a lot of that should be taken care of. The only thing they're gonna have left to do, besides whatever punch list items come up, are a scissor lift that goes in the loading dock that is not set to be delivered until sometime in the end of September. Some of the speakers, some of the wiring and stuff, that will happen towards the end of August. And then the lighting controller is not set to be here until December because of shipping issues. And so, but they are looking into options to make sure that we can get something to help us run our lights. They'll make sure they're operational, probably rent us something. So I'm excited that, you know, it's looking like we're gonna be able to have our fall performances in there, and that, I didn't know if that was gonna happen as of, you know, before that meeting. So, so that's really pretty exciting. So,
Absolutely.
and it's an amazing facility. So, as some of you guys will see tonight if you come over, so.
Okay, is that all for the construction projects update?
Yep.
All right, then we'll go on to 6.02 superintendent report.
Okay, so, I just have a couple things here. Of course, I just turned my page. Sorry about that. So we have, when it comes to facilities, I have something pulled up here, and I know I've been sending you guys some emails. Some of the work that I've been done in the first couple weeks here, especially because we were kind of down a full-time grounds and maintenance person, was just really kind of going facility to facility and taking a look at, you know, what are some items, what are some possibilities, what are some issues that are taking place in each one of the buildings and on the grounds. This is pretty much, if Dave wants to zoom a little bit further out, this is pretty much what I'm used to putting through as far as a facilities plan goes. And I call it kind of a comprehensive facility plan. Everything from what needs to happen pretty immediately, the 0 to 1, to what needs to happen, you know, 10 years plus. And so, and at every building and at every level. So we have operations, we have every building, we have grounds. And as I walk, we keep filling in items. And then the cabinet and the principals and I will sit down and we'll talk about where some of these things may fall into the order. So some of the things that they see as priorities within their buildings may move up into 0 to 1. Some of the items may say they're more of a 3 to 5 as far as what they believe the needs are. So it really is a collaborative effort. And then once we have this developed, that's where I'll bring it back to the board then and say, you know, let's go do some walkthroughs. Let's take a look at where we have things lined up on the facility schedule here based on a budget that Andrea provides us of what we get on a yearly basis from SAVE and PEPL, and then what we have set aside for maybe future larger projects. And so what I tell people is there's don't be afraid to put anything up there. So if you think we need to have a moat around Titan Hill, you know, to keep out the dinosaurs, like, we'll put it up there. That's probably more of the 10+ year thing, but we're gonna put it up there. But the goal is to look at it, you know, as what are things we absolutely need right now and we can't function without? What are some things that it would be nice to have, more of our wants? And then what is our wish? What is our dream? Because sometimes that ends up becoming more of a need or want down the line, you know? So, so that it's just kind of an all comprehensive overview. It's not a guarantee we're gonna do everything. Obviously, everything will run through the board as far as what we end up doing, but it helps us get organized. And the biggest reason I like it to be a collaborative effort is because as a building administrator, there's nothing more frustrating than knowing that my carpet should be replaced and just keep hearing that it's gonna be done sometime. You know, that's frustrating as a building administrator versus if you're a part of the meetings and you know okay, it's not getting done this year because I agree there are probably other priorities, but it's on the list for next year, you know? So that's kind of the whole point of this process, is to make sure that everybody's kind of in the know. And then at some point, I want to bring in community members and other people from the other stakeholders to help us vet and to give us their input as well, because obviously as parents and community members, you probably see things that, you know, we don't on a day-to-day basis. You know, I could walk by the same thing every single day and I just don't see it, and you might walk in one time and say, why is that picture crooked? Not the picture actually is crooked, I should fix that. But anyway, but that's kind of the scenario, you know. It's just, I want it to be as collaborative as possible so people are in the know, and so people actually feel like they, you know, have a pretty good say in what's going on. So that is what we're currently developing right now. I still have, I visited Kreft, I visited the middle school, the high school. We did a grounds walk. I've been in the operations building. And so just trying to plug things in there as we go. Next thing I have is LCLC. Another thing I did, I just got done doing it today, is we spent a lot of time over at LCLC meeting with Mrs. Robinson and talking about the program, who we serve, and, you know, what can we do to maximize the number of students? Because I didn't really have a clear understanding, but we only serve about 10% of the population, I mean, less than 10% of the students that are qualified for that program as far as age-wise, from our kindergarten through 5th grade. We're serving less than 10%. And so, and that's because of kind of space, and it's kind of multifaceted, right? It's space, it's staffing, it's what we're able to do based on our DHS requirements. You know, we're only supposed to, you know, have X amount of students in that space. And so trying to determine how can we maximize the number of students that we're serving on a day-to-day basis. And so moving forward, especially now with, I just heard 2 more daycares shut down in our immediate area just over the last 2 weeks. And so, like, daycare is a huge issue. And I know that we can't solve all problems that happen within our community, but as a school district, like, that should be a focus of ours, is trying to do what we can to plug holes within the facility, and so, or within the community. And so if that's something we can take a look at and maybe tweak or alter or look to see if there's any way we can grow, that's the conversation we're having right now. And so we may see some changes come out in the near future as far as kind of how we're having students enter into the system to try to make sure that we're serving as many as we can. And if we can ever get some additional space and staffing, obviously we'll continue to expand as we're able to. So that's, it's an amazing program. They do a lot of really good things with kids, and that's what I want to make sure that they're able to come with some students on August 8th to kind of share their story and what they're doing in the program. Committees, I talked to you a little bit about, I just talked a little bit about having a facility committee moving forward, and I'll probably make an official request for that in the near future. Another possibility of a committee that I mentioned before is maybe a safety committee, somebody that can come through, or if we can get some individuals on board to help us determine, you know, what are some of the safety aspects of a school, and what can we do to ensure that we're covering all our bases. And you know, I talk sometimes as a school employee, you know, you kind of feel like you're on an island. You know, we need to invite people to our island so they can come in and kind of give us some input from the outside. The auditorium I talked a little bit about, and then the final thing I have right here is we do have the Vote of Pepple coming up on September 13th. I did create a little kind of beginning of a flyer right here. It's got a lot of information. I'll probably pare it down a little bit, so that way we can talk about, you know, what is the public plant or physical plant and equipment levy? You know, what is that? What does it do for us? What can we spend the money on? You know, why is it important to school districts? Is it any different than maybe what other school districts do? Is it, what types of purchases can we make? You know, like for instance, people I think will be surprised to hear that we can't pay any salaries on it. It's simply to help us provide the facilities and the transportation that our students need in order to be successful within our schools. And without it, we could be in some trouble. And so, or just have to be very, very, very creative. So talking about, you know, what this does for us, And then offering up opportunities, you know, I want the community to feel like they can contact me and ask me questions about it as the vote comes closer, so they can make an informed decision. I don't want anybody to feel like they don't have the information they need. So, so anyway, so that is, kind of a beginning of a flyer. I'll probably go through it and vet it a little bit more. If you guys, as you look at it, have any suggestions, I'll be happy to take them. And then when I send out an email this week, I'll probably include this just to kind of say, you know, by the way, we do have a vote coming up on September 13th. So if you have any questions, they can reach out to me. So that's essentially it, though.
Okay. So everyone can review this and see if there's anything feel like need to be added or.
Yep, just
taken
reach
off
out to me
or-
and just say, you know,
Perfect.
I mean, you're not gonna hurt my feelings. You can say way too busy, pare it down to a paragraph, you know, like, and if that's the case, tell me what needs to be in that paragraph, you know, cause I just wanna provide the information that the public needs in order to feel like they're informed.
Right,
So.
absolutely.
I think this is a good explanation of everything.
Okay, thank you. We'll go on to our discussion items. 7.01, 2022-2023 student handbooks.
Okay, so we have, well, first of all, since they're here, I'll let Mrs. and Mr. Barker step forward and talk a little bit about, do you guys have any big changes that you're making at Titan Hill, or?
Just a few at Titan Hill. Want me to come up to the table?
Yeah, that's pretty good, so public can hear you.
I have my laptop with me so I don't forget. Not a whole lot of changes for Titan Hill. Some are just obviously personnel, directory, things like that. One of the bigger changes was our transportation matrix change for elementary. That I believe is on page 33. And we really just, our associate principal, Michelle Hoffman, worked with middle school and worked with Lori Teese in transportation to really try to align our bus matrix with what we do in the building. So we're keeping kids in class, we're adding a lot of restorative practices to make sure that we're building that empathy, we're restoring relationships and building relationships, but then also ensuring that the consequence aligns with the infraction. So some infractions are a little bit less severe than others, and so we want to make sure that we have clearly laid out what consequence each infraction might entail, so that we can support drivers, but also support students who need the buses to get to school. Another change that was a larger one was our attendance section. So we worked with Dave Black, Lisa, and myself and our associates, because prior, a student could come to school up to an hour and a half late or leave up to an hour and a half early, and there wouldn't be an absence in there. It would just be a tardy. So for our students who are chronically absent, in order for us to give them support and be able to identify them so that we can support them and their families and ensure that they're getting their education, we changed that tardy to arriving 5 or more minutes after the start of the day or leaving 5 or more minutes before the start of the day. And then our absences moved up as well. So a half-day absence then is a little bit more time, a little bit less time than it was prior. Supply lists were updated. We had some updates to health and safety policies. Those came straight from our district nurse. And SABRS was changed to Panorama Social Emotional Survey. That's going to replace the SABRS Social Emotional Survey that our students took. And I think those are the large ones. Yeah, those are the big ones that were large changes. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? And this is just for the elementary?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, you got it.
So you're going back to lockers? Is this, no, that's not you. Yeah, that is Titan Hill.
Our students have been using lockers.
But during COVID, it says you didn't use, the reason I'm asking is just cell phones and electronic devices. I was just reading through that one.
Mm-hmm. So students didn't share lockers during COVID, but they're back, yes, they're back to sharing. Mm-hmm.
So cell phones will be back in, because that's my question for the middle school too, is.
Yes, so our cell phone policy is they can absolutely bring them, they just have to be out of sight during the school day.
Okay.
We do, of course, in our handbook, it says that anything you bring to school is at your own risk, of
Absolutely.
course, and we always encourage students not to leave those in their lockers because we don't have locks on lockers in
No
elementary.
locks, okay.
So we ask them, some teachers will check them in, during the day, some teachers just say, as long as they're out of sight, you're good. We don't have too many problems with cell phones at Titan Hill.
Not at Titan
so,
Hill, okay.
no.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. And were there changes in the middle school handbook?
Yes, we had a few changes, and I apologize, I did not bring a list. I was just told that I would be asked questions potentially.
Yep, the lists are up there.
Oh, okay, there we go. And the biggest thing is, as Amy pointed out, is cell phones are going back to lockers, now that all students will be asked to keep their cell phones in their lockers, which, you know, obviously, you know, gonna need to remember their locker combinations now, and use them, but they're still allowed to take little bags to classes and things like that to carry supplies, and whatnot, but the cell phones will need to remain in their lockers. And they can still check them in between classes, at lunchtime, they can still bring them down, and before and after school, obviously.
So are you going to encourage lockers and no more backpacks through the middle school then too, or?
Yeah, because I mean, what we did before COVID, we had the little drawstrings that they could bring in, and they were just, you know, a fire hazard was kind of the big thing with the big bulky backpacks, but obviously we went away from lockers. Kids have gotten used to that, and so we are encouraging the drawstrings again. I don't know that we're enforcing 100% that they can't bring the other backpacks, but again, that's the transition that we're getting back to, is the smaller drawstrings in classes.
Just gotta prep him for what's
Yep,
coming.
absolutely.
Does anyone have any questions for the middle school changes?
Was there anything else that was major that was changed?
You know, that was the big one. I mean, that's the one that's gonna draw the biggest attention. The grading, you know, going back to F instead of IL, but again, that was, you know, due to the technology we have. But yeah, that was the biggest talking point.
Okay.
I don't know if there was anything that stood out to anybody else, but I knew that would be what I would need to speak on today. Yeah, and dress code, we just kind of updated the language for that. The biggest questions that we had moving towards the end of the year was cut off sleeves versus tank tops, you know, that was a big thing. So we just kind of clarified, but I don't know, there was no, you know, we just, like I said, just more specific and clarifying what our dress code is. Wasn't any big changes.
Everyone good on handbooks as presented? Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, you're welcome to every meeting. There's
Okay, we'll go on to 7.02.
And just to,
Oh.
the other two, sorry.
High school
yeah.
and craft.
So both Crafton High School, they had very minimal changes. The high school's change actually was due to their activities. Mr. Van Chettle said, the one change that they had was in language, the activities handbook. It helps us track in-season referrals for students and activities cleaner. So they were just looking for a better way to track those referrals. So that would be the only change for the high school.
And Craft uses the same handbook for elementary students. There is an additional preschool handbook that's part of what Craft uses specifically for preschool.
Okay. All right, then we'll go on to 7.02, IASB recommended policy updates, first reading.
So we do have a couple, thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
Just a couple, every so often, almost quarterly, they send us, through a subscription that we have at the IASB, they send us some updates to policies based on either legislative changes or during their reviews with their attorneys, they might pick up some things that they think need to be clarified. So the first one that we have to clarify is the student fundraising. So we've had a 504.5 student fundraising policy, and it basically just said that that policy was up to the superintendent to determine administrative regulations for it. Well, then, I think that they've seen some across the state, some maybe loose administrative regulations in regards to some of the student fundraising that's been going on. And so they added this regulation, this 504.5R1, and it basically gives some guidance. So it still leaves plenty of leeway for us to determine when and how and what we're gonna do for fundraisers. But it does clarify some things, which actually I appreciate as an administrator, because sometimes, especially when we find out about a practice that's been taking place a long time, and I'm not saying it's happened here, but it's happened in previous places and other places that I know about, where all of a sudden you stumble upon a fundraiser that you didn't know had been happening, and they weren't really following any of the guidelines, and so then you want to change it, but it's been a very successful fundraiser. This kind of gives us some meat to say, yep, like, we actually need to change it, because not only is it kind of against policy, but it's kind of illegal. So, and really it's, you know, we're not going to ask students to solicit door to door. We're not going to engage in fundraising efforts that provide an alternative community service option in lieu of credits for graduate, or to apply toward credit funds raised. So basically what we're trying not to do is we're trying not to create an undue burden on kids. Like, if they fundraise, that's great. The other thing is all of the money, and this is usually where we get sticky, is all the money that's fundraised by the students actually belongs to the school. It doesn't belong to the student. And it's really supposed to be used for anybody in that organization. So even though I fundraise as a part of my, let's say it's the baseball team, let's say I fundraise as part of the baseball team, like, it really goes in the baseball account. It belongs to the school. They can utilize it for any student that's in that activity. It's not just earmarked towards me. And so that just kind of clarifies that, just so people understand, like, legally, here are the expectations. I have had some of those conversations before, where I even had a conversation one time with a parent where they were requesting if they could use that money for a different activity because they fundraised it. And I said, that's not really, you know, once it belongs to the school, once it's in there, it actually belongs to that activity. So that's the first one. And then the second one is the radon mitigation, 804.7 and 804.71. So new legislation requires us to do some radon testing before 2027. And then we're gonna have to move forward at that point based on the levels and the criteria they have yet to set to basically tell us, like, how we need to mitigate it. So that's just a new policy. So one of those that they're still developing, but we have time. You know, it's only about 5 years away. So.
Okay, are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question on the fundraising, the advertising and promotion. Any student fundraising activity which utilizes district's name, likeness, or logo will be subject to board approval. And all are conditions of the policy accompanying regulations. Since virtually everything that they fundraise with has our logo on it, I don't know if we want to have to approve that at 100% by the board.
Do you guys approve a fundraising calendar every year with all the fundraisers on it?
We get,
Yeah.
yeah.
Approve all of them through the consent agenda.
Yep.
So all of them have to fill out a fundraiser approval form, and all of them come through you in the consent agenda.
Right, but, okay.
So in a very real sense, you're doing that already if they're following procedure.
Yeah, I just don't want us to get into the, you know, we gotta approve, here's what they're gonna use our image and likeness of.
Right, and I think the purpose of it is basically just if they're going to do a fundraiser on behalf of the school
Okay,
and
I'm
use.
good with that. I just
Yeah.
wanna make sure we're interpreting it that way.
Yes, correct.
Because I don't want us to be approving, you know.
Every flyer that
Branding of-
has our logo.
Yeah.
on
No,
it.
Oh,
no.
the actual image, got ya.
Yes.
Right. And and this is just a first reading, because I can also go through and maybe clarify that a little
Yeah,
bit
and the
to
only reason why I was
say.
asking is it says it under advertising and promotion.
Mhm.
I agree, we approve the fundraising event. I just don't think that we want to be approving how the logos and everything are being used. I think that's safe in the hands of
Right.
principals and administrators, not
Mhm.
not the board. So,
Right.
Okay, then that's the only thing that I just want to make sure we're clear on. Okay.
Gotcha.
Any other comments, questions? All right, 7.03, removal of 409 policies related to the FFCRA.
So we no longer have, you know, that the Families First Coronavirus Response Act is no longer in effect, so these policies are kind of null and void. So just asking to remove them because inevitably when we have people that do test positive with, you know, COVID, then they not necessarily want to fall back, they're just really not available for them anyway, so.
Is this related to the funds that were in place for those days off? And that's why we're removing them, because those funds are no longer available?
It's that too, but I think it's because it's more or less like, this is no longer the recommendation, like we wouldn't have them be off, you know, now we're told by the state of Iowa to treat it in their words, like the flu, like that's how we're supposed to treat it. So if in a flu case scenario, we would not give them 80 hours of additional paid leave to be gone, so.
Any other questions?
Is that, when you treat it like the flu, is that fever-free for 24 hours, symptom-free, and then you can come back?
That's how we're supposed to treat it.
Okay.
Mhm.
And that's for kids too?
That's for kids too.
Perfect, okay.
Any other questions? Nope. All right, we'll go to 7.04, IASB legislative priorities for 2023.
So I just recommended the same priorities that you had set previously, and that was, let me find it here, sorry. Number one, increase preschool funding. I think that, you know, we talked a little bit about the daycare issue. Preschool is a huge issue right now. I think everywhere, but, you know, it's because we only receive half funding for preschool students right now. So even if you hold the program, it's really hard to do all-day funding for preschool students. So you have to have almost a daycare option on the side. Well, we kind of have neither. And so we're really capped here at Lewis Central on who we're able to provide preschool to. And I know that we get quite a few requests from even open enrolled parents who want to open enroll not only their elementary, middle school, and high school students, but a preschool student. And we'll tell them, like, we can accept your high school student, your middle school student, and your elementary student, but we can't accept your preschool student, which really is kind of hard. And the reason we can't is because we can't even serve all of the preschool students who want to be in Lewis Central, who live in district. So that's kind of a, you know, there's multiple reasons why we can't serve them now. One of which is we just don't have the space. There's literally no space at CREF to expand preschool classrooms. The funding is not there from a state level for us to add. And right now, finding early childhood teachers who are special ed endorsed they're kind of like the coveted unicorn. They're out there. You just can't find them. So, so increased preschool funding has to be something, or in my opinion, be something that we would love to continue to support. Support mental health access, and even though the state has stepped forward in recent years to help us provide some provide some funding for us and some options for us to increase what we're able to provide students as far as mental health support, I think there's always room for that. And so that's something that to look at to continue. Obviously, a robust school funding policy, which kind of goes along with the state supplemental aid. You know, we need to be able to have the funds needed to be able to offer programming that our students need to be successful. And it's becoming harder and harder with the salaries that some of their school districts are paying for us to keep up, because the large districts get a lot of money. And even though we're a growing district, we're just not receiving the same type of compensation as they are. And so for us to be able to turn around and pay employees, the same wages that they are, it's hard. So I don't know how the state corrects that, but I think developing funding policies that provide equitable funding and allow us to keep pace with the larger districts is pretty vital for us. So specifically with our, our classified staff and our certified staff, we just can't, staffing's harder in general. We just need to be able to, and it's harder when you can't compete with salaries and benefits.
Is there any questions or any other recommendations you think that we should support? Or are we good with what's recommended, or what we supported before?
I think these are the important
I agree.
aspects that the state needs to address, and how they can continue to keep Iowa a first-class state in the education field. We're slowly falling behind on that.
Anyone else? Okay. This is the second time during our agenda. We'll take comments and suggestions from anyone in the audience, or if anyone online listening would like to type something in to address the board.
No, but the baseball team is up 4-3 in the sixth inning.
Ooh.
That's good news. Thank you. I was wondering, so. All right, then we'll go on to action items. 9.01, 2022-2023 student handbooks. Can I get a motion, please?
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended handbooks for all the buildings as amended.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffield?
Yes. 9.02, IASB recommended policy updates on the first reading.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the first readings of the policies that were presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffield?
Yes. 9.03, removal of 409 policies related to the FFCRA.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to remove the policy 409.2E1 and 409.2E2 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just want to clarify something on that. We're removing the policy. The comment made about the flu, the CDC guidance is still to quarantine for the 5 days and then mask for 5 days. We're not saying that's going away. We're saying
Right.
we can't enforce it.
Right, so that's where there's some debate right now, and so that's where we'll have to get together, review our back to school, or our safety plan and coming back.
Okay.
This is only in regards to staffing, and so this was to provide them some additional compensations when they're gone related to COVID.
And that's where.
And
the
that's,
funding
and
is,
that's
right?
where the additional compensation, as far as, and that's why I hesitate a little bit, because as far as students, yes, that is the recommendation by the state, is to treat it like the flu. There, obviously no decision has been made as far as how we're going to continue to treat it, so.
Okay,
um,
but for staff too, it's removing this policy, they would still be encouraged to.
Absolutely,
Follow
yeah.
guidance and.
Yes,
okay.
they just don't get
I
any.
just want that to be clear.
Yes, that's correct, yeah. There's just no additional compensation, so.
Funding
Because the funding
mechanism's
has gone away,
Mhm.
yes.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and we had a motion in a second.
Yes.
Any other question, or any other discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Stoffer?
I didn't hear you, I'm sorry.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Wyledge?
Yes.
Ms. Adkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffield?
Yes. All right, items of interest, future board meetings, so our next meeting will be.
Wait a minute. We have one more.
9.04, please.
Oh, I crossed it off already. Okay, 9.04, IASB legislative priorities for 2023.
Madam Chairwoman,
Mr. Hendricks.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the resolution for the 4 IASB legislative priorities for the 2023 legislative session as 1, increase preschool funding. 2, support mental health access. 3, support a robust school funding policy. And 4, set the state supplemental aid to sufficiently support local districts.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote, please.
Mr. Wylage?
Yes.
Ms. Atkins?
Yes.
Mr. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mrs. McDaniel?
Yes.
Mrs. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Stoffer?
Yes.
Mrs. Sheffel?
Yes. Now, items of interest, future board meetings is our next regular board meeting will be August 8th at 6:30. Anything else?
And that's it.
All right, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You can stay, I guess. Thank you.